yesterday and haven't heard back how he's doing. But and I guess as far as an announcement, we're about a month and a half, just not quite 2 months out from our men's retreat, which is going to be a men's rally. It's going to be here at the building again this year. It's April 13th and 14th. Our speaker for this year, and I meant to have a slide made, but like I said, totally wasn't thinking that way. Our speaker is Darren Williamson. Darren's been here before from over in Portland. He works with, I can never remember the name of the congregation, but he works with the Northwest School of Discipleship that he kind of has started. And I talked to him yesterday or Friday, and we were talking about his material. His theme is going to be Act Like Men. And each of his lessons is going to be act like godly men, act like servant men, or whatever. I don't remember exactly. But I told him, I said, I'm excited about this. This is some material that you're excited about. And he goes, well, I'm going to tell you, this is all brand new. He goes, this is stuff I've been working on and thinking about. And he goes, this isn't canned material. And which, I usually ask our men's retreat guys, do you have something you already know that you want to just bring to us? But Darren's excited. This is something he's very passionate about. So I'm looking forward to making that connection a little further with Darren as well. In fact, he was supposed to bring his Project Antioch group here in January when we were all snowed in. So that they were actually in town, but couldn't get here or couldn't get anywhere really. But so anyway, so that's coming up mid-April for you men. Get that on your calendars. Any other prayer requests this morning? Adam sick. Adam Havlick is homesick. Not homesick. He is at home, not feeling well. Yes, sir. A friend of Alex Payton lost his grandfather. Mm-hmm.
Just for Brandon.
April West. April West friend, Brandon.
He could go to, he really wants to go to Bear Valley, and the opportunity sounds like it's possible.
Oh, good.
But it's just the parent, it's that conflict of
Getting from point A to point B.
Yes, like, and he said, I might have to get a lawyer, but just, I hope it wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to get out of his house and start a life.
He's looking to go to Bear Valley to start preaching and just dealing with the challenges of making all that happen. Anything else? Okay.
God in heaven, we want to thank you for a brand new day, a brand new week, with your blessings. So, God, please be with us this morning and help us to open our hearts and our minds to your word, Psalms, and this lesson. Help us to take these things and just build our faith in you and into your word. God, please be with those that are in need of your help. God, we want to pray for Steve Woodville for his eye recovery. Help just heal him and recover his sight. God, we'd also pray for Adam, who's homesick, recover and be well. And for Alex's friend, lost a grandfather. God, please just give him comfort and let them know that you're there for them. And then God, also for April West friends trying to move to Bear Valley, we just remove those obstacles so that they can get there and learn more about you, family and knowledge that do good works for you. God, I pray that you would also just be with those that are still in need, that need your help, that need your healing, and those that aren't able to make it this morning through those obstacles, and give them encouragement. God, again, just bless us and help us to encourage each other and build each other up this morning. Pray in Jesus' name.
Amen. Okay, as we have been looking through the Psalms, we looked for the first part of this quarter at the Psalms of orientation, the happy Psalms that are praise psalms, just excited about life in general and thanking God for that. Adam introduced us last week to this idea of the psalms of disorientation. And this is I'm actually, in a weird way, I guess, I'm kind of glad we get to spend a little more time on these. Tommy has a lesson next week also on some psalms of disorientation. But these psalms, to me, in a weird way, are super encouraging. They're kind of down. They kind of have a negative vibe to them a little bit. But the encouragement that what these provide for us can be an encouragement, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because these are a little uncomfortable. For us to read as Christians who, we're reminded all the time that we should be, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. In whatever state I find myself, I'm content. Paul's words, the reminders for us as Christians about how happy we should be, about, how joyful we should be. All of that is true. And all of that is important for us to remember. But I think these Psalms help us remember that these are also faithful ways to deal with God. That it is okay for us to go, what in the world is happening, God? Why is this happening to me? Why is this happening in my life? Why is this happening to my family, to my child, to my spouse, to my friends? It's okay to do this. There are so many of these that show us that God's not going to be upset with us when we get frustrated or when we get aggravated, even with Him, because He knows He's right. God knows He's not doing anything wrong. So I think what we see, it really echoes a lot of what we see in the Old Testament. In fact, we'll kind of look at a couple parallels this morning. That a lot of times we see Job. When Job gets angry, Job goes at God. God finally goes, okay, sit down, shut up. I'm going to give you the answers you're looking for. But that's a different situation. But these Psalms help us to see, even though it is a little uncomfortable for us, it's a little awkward for us from maybe especially from our 21st century Christian mindset, that everything's good, everything's great, we ought to be happy and thankful. Yes, but sometimes things aren't good and great. And we need to be real about that as well. And as Adam mentioned last week, these psalms, these lament psalms, almost always follow a certain structure. We'll look at that in just a minute. Like I said, in my opinion, these psalms may be one of the greatest contributions the psalms provide for us as Christians. This idea that we can pour it out to God, but then the reminder that it's God who's going to see us through. Because that's what is so valuable about the majority of these psalms. When we think about the idea of lament, Adam may have asked this last week, but I'll ask again. Give me a definition. Don't try and think how it connects to psalms. Give me a definition of lament. Expression of sorrow. We don't use the word lament. Hey, what's wrong with you today? You look a little down. Oh, I'm in a state of lament. No, we don't say that. What's that? Where are they? Yeah, just questioning. Where are you? What else? You guys are giving very biblical answers. How about, yeah. Sadness? Yeah. Woe is me. How about just complaining? Honestly, maybe that reveals something about me. But when I think of lament, that's what I think. Just kind of a whininess, a complaining. Here's what. Now, and again, all of the elements, honestly, the elements of whininess, complaining, sadness, woe is me, all of those are there. Here's the definition from Mr. Webster. To express sorrow, mourning, or regret often demonstratively, or as a noun, it is crying out in grief or sorrow. So, really, even by the definition, it's not really complaining. It is an acknowledgement of a bad situation and just saying, I don't know what to do here. I'm not sure where to go with this. And when we look at these, the Psalms, it's an understanding. This isn't just something, this isn't a problem I'm just going around and around with, that I'm just trying to figure it out and beat it to death. It is, as we see in this pattern, it is those moments followed by, but God. Or, I mean, the words but and yet are very common in these Psalms. It's yet, God, you're going to see me through this. So that's one of the things that we need to point out is that structure. Adam looked at Psalm 13 last week, and what we see is that structure is complaint. It's here's the problem. Where are you, God? Why, oh God? How long, oh God? We see that often. And then it's a petition. It's saying, here's what I need to happen, God. And what's interesting about these, the next facet of it is a motivation. I mean, we see in a lot of these, the psalmist going, listen, you're God. I mean, if anybody's going to get this thing fixed, it's you. Look at what you've done. There's a reminder, especially as we'll look at these communal laments. There's this reminder of, look what you've done for us all the time. So do something else. So fix this situation. And then there's that expression of trust. Like I said, it's where this is the situation, but here's what I'm going to do about it. Here's what you're going to do about it. These are the moments that I refer to as the deep breath moments. Because we've all been in that situation, right? Where I can't figure out what to do about this. I'm upset about this. I'm tired of this. And this is happening. And this is happening. But God, I'm going to let you take care of it. And that's what we see. And that to me is a great permissive quality of these Psalms that allow us to say, rant, rave, but God, I'm going to give this over to you. Eric. Yeah.
Some of them do, and then it seems they self-realize, okay, God's got this, I'm just going to hand it off to him.
Mm-hmm.
In other instances, God steps in and he reminds them because they don't get there themselves.
Yeah.
And I think we're in both those situations at times.
Yeah.
With the goal of trying to figure it out and not need God to step in and remind us as much.
Yeah.
We still need that.
Well, yeah, and there are times that God uses the people around us to remind us. I always think of when we went to Bear Valley, when we left Oklahoma to go to Bear Valley, we couldn't sell our house. And it was super frustrating. So we moved thinking that our house was going to sell. In fact, we had a contract on our house that fell through, blah, blah, blah. But 2 months in, 3 months in, we're still making house payments and we're going broke. And it was just super frustrating. And we were trying to think of, we may have to just leave and go back to Oklahoma. And I was apparently pretty down. And I walked into school one morning at Bear Valley, and this guy I didn't hardly even know at the time, Jeremy Corday. And Jeremy goes, hey, what's wrong with you? I was like, oh, nothing. He goes, yeah, something's wrong, obviously. And I was like, well, we're fighting this thing with our... And he goes, let God handle it. And I was like, oh, yeah. He goes, no, really, come here. And he sat me down and we prayed, and I was like, who's this guy? But it was like, that to me very much felt like God going, okay, you go fix this guy or something. But yeah, we have those moments of lament where sometimes, whether it's through God's word or through situation, whatever, that we need to be reminded that God can do. And that's how these Psalms usually end, not all of them, but then it ends with this vow to praise, that I understand that you're God and you can fix this because you're a great and awesome God. Which, like I said, to me is super comforting. Psalm 86, Adam looked at that one as well. Same type elements. Turn over to Psalm 3. This one I want to kind of look at just a little bit. As Psalm 3 is pretty typical, the laments usually begin with a declaration of what the problem is. That here's what I'm wrestling with. As we look at Psalm 3, first verses say, Lord, how my foes increase. There are many who attack me. Many say about me, there is no help for him in God. Now, right away you see you see his problem. The people that are harassing David are saying, the God that you serve isn't going to do anything for you. Look what we're doing to you, and where is your God now? Now, Dave, as you read through this, let's skip over verse 3. Look at verse 4. I cry aloud to the Lord, and he answers me. Verse 5, I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord... No, that's too positive. Verse 6, I'll be afraid of thousands of people who have taken their stand. Okay, you can read through that, and you can see David is very, very mournful in all of this. Why is he so sad in all of this? What's unique about this psalm? You can probably see in the intro to the psalm, or if you have footnotes, or who are his enemies in this particular situation? His kid, his son, is the one pursuing him. His son is trying to overthrow him. So David is, I mean, when we read some of these, we go, oh yeah, sounds like he's sad. Think of the situation. He is in the pits of despair. I mean, it isn't like I've got a son that has wandered away and isn't being faithful, because that's happened. It's not like I'm having an argument with my son, because that's happened. It is all of that times a million. His son is literally trying to kill him. He's being pursued by his son and his son's hordes. And what we see is David recognizing the fact that what is another common theme, and we see this a lot in the communal laments, he's saying, God, this looks bad on you. That everybody knows that I'm David. I'm the man after God's own heart. I don't know if they know that yet, but he's saying, and they're out there saying, where's his God? His God's not going to protect him. Then what's great is these moments in like verse 3 and then verse 8. Verse 3, but you, O Lord, are a shield around me, in my glory and the one who lifts up my head. Verse 8, salvation belongs to the Lord. May your blessings be on your people. This psalm goes through that structure, if you will, kind of repeatedly. And you can almost, if you read it thinking about where David is mentally, that he's being pursued by you can almost read the anxiety in it. Because it's very hot and cold. He's like, this is terrible, but you are going to get me through. But God, this is really, really, okay. But it's a little neurotic. Because you can read the tension in this. That's verse 3. Verse 8, he ends this psalm, though, with this idea. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessings be on your people. What I think is so interesting about this is that nowhere in this does David suggest, here's what we should do about it. Because it's not about a solution. It's about resting on God. It's about trusting God. Dana.
This kind of harkens back to a situation where he had all those chances to take Saul out.
Yeah.
And he says, no, I'm not going to touch the Lord's anointed.
Yeah.
And it was really coming back to him and saying, okay, God, I did it right, but whatever your will is, I know it's going to be him. So
Yeah.
I go with you.
I could have killed the Lord's anointed, but my own son is now trying to kill the Lord's anointed. Eric. Yeah.
The background was like this big mountain kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just this big void of emptiness and aloneness, which I think is what you feel when you're lamenting a lot of times. You're like, where is God? Why is
Yeah.
God not here with me? And then the other thought that came to my mind was, you don't see in these David saying, prevent this from happening to me necessarily. It's where are you to get me through this?
Right.
So I think the maturity in that we could take from away from
Yeah, because I know for me, when I pray and I'm bad about this and I catch myself in my own prayers and go, stop. I'll pray to the creator of the universe and I'll offer up a solution. God, help me get through this. In fact, here's an idea. And it's like, what? But we don't see that in this psalm. It's David just saying, this is the way it is, but you're God. that salvation belongs to you. But then there is kind of that subtle reminder, your blessings be on your people, who is, by the way, me. I mean, that's what he's saying, is that this is what we expect from God. And then, like I said, that verse 3 and verse 8 are those deep breath moments where you can almost see David just going, okay, but salvation belongs to the Lord. So I'm putting this at your feet. And that is such an expression of trust. That's such an expression of faith that that I think is sometimes, I know for me that's very hard to mimic sometimes. To have that deep of a trust, to just go, I'm not even going to think about how to solve it. I'm not going to think about any suggestions I could give to God. I'm just going to say, this is all yours. And I'm going to rest. I'm going to trust in that peace. We're on the way here this morning. We're listening to songs. And that song, I Will Wait for You. That song to me always reminds me of this type thing. That whatever the situation is, I'll wait for you, God. I'll patiently, to the best of my ability, I'll remember that you're in charge of all this. And that seems to be what David is saying here. We're going to shift over to the communal idea here in just a minute. But these personal laments, I just think are such a blessing to us. Eli Wiesel, Jewish guy who was in a concentration camp, ended up writing a whole lot about what happened to him. He tells a story of a young Jewish man that he knew that came out of a concentration camp, really was wrestling with what happened to his people. And he had many questions for God, and he went over and over and asked different rabbis. And one rabbi told him, just go and study. And he thought, that's very flippant of you to say that. But he thought, okay, I'm going to do it. So he did. The young man went and immersed himself in the Talmud, and went and immersed himself in the scriptures that he followed, and he did this for a long time. And he stayed away from home. And when he came home, his family asked him, where are you with all this now? And his answer was this. He said, my questions remain questions, but now somehow I know I can go on. And I think that is such a great summary of some of these lament psalms. I'm not saying it's solved. I'm not saying things are perfect or even better, but I can get to the point with this mentality that I can go on anyway. And I can trust that God is going to get through this. What is the faith level of these psalms? I should have asked this at the beginning. Because you read through them and it's like, this guy's really doubting God. This person's really questioning. How do you see the faith of these psalms?
So interesting, Clint, because I was talking with my coworker this week about this topic of faith and praying to God for things, and the question was asked, is it a testament to my lack of faith that I will pray to God for things and they won't happen?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I've got a solution, God.
Yeah.
Please do it this way.
Yeah.
This is what we need here. And, the idea that if you pray with enough faith that God will answer that prayer, you'll get what you need. And when I don't seem to be getting what I'm needing, is that saying to me that I've got a lack of faith going on?
Mm-hmm.
You think about Abram, and he raised the knife on Isaac.
Yeah.
And, God, the reason I believe that God stopped that is he knew that Abram truly in his heart was going to kill Isaac.
Yeah.
And that's when he said, now I know.
Yeah.
You had to prove it, but I guess it's just that level of faith. Do I have that level of faith that I can raise that mountain up like Mike talked about on Wednesday?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And toss it into the sea,
Yeah.
So I appreciate this picture of we can cry out to God, and that alone is showing our faith.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's knowing where to go.
I think oftentimes in our day-to-day little prayers,
Mm-hmm.
I think when you get to a state of lament, you're done with the surface level. You are so deep in your grief or your sorrow that you are telling everything to God. I think that's why you see this swing from like deep sorrow to like, but I know who you are.
Yeah.
This understanding, because it, you know, when you get to that point and you're praying so deeply for something, there is a lot of feelings with it. So
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely.
God understands that, but it's different from our normal affairs.
Yeah, it really is.
I think it's interesting that you asked, like, what's the faith level of these, and I think it's like extremely high.
Yeah.
You start out like surface level, you read it, you're like, oh, this guy's like questioning God,
Yeah.
mad at God or whatever. But like you think about it, like if we were to talk to another person, like a friend of ours or a family member, the way that some of these psalms start out, the way they're talking to God, like why would you continue it? Like people would walk away from us.
Yeah.
Even though like we could talk to God that way, and He's not going to walk away from us. So I think because of that alone, the faith level's got to be.
Yeah. That's a great point. That if you're going to spill your guts to somebody, you're not going to walk up to the person in the aisle at Walmart and go, "Hey, I got to tell you this." Because they're going to go, "Okay." You know, I mean, that conversation's ending fast.
Even your closest family members.
Yeah, it's got to be somebody you completely trust to say, "Bleh." You know, here's what's going on in my life.
I've spent a lot of time throughout my life thinking of the Psalms as like momentary bursts of faith. But, I'm coming to an understanding that these are very well thought out. These
Yeah.
aren't necessarily like just caught in the moment. And so he gave them all a lot of thought. It wasn't just, this is how I feel now.
Yeah, yeah. There's some of these. It seems like you can read them, and they seem written very much in the moment. But again, I think it is that perspective of here's how this event happened, and here's how I'm going to record it. But honestly, I don't know if any of you journal. There are times where you can kind of think about, well, here's what happened last week, and even in the moment, reflecting from the past, you can kind of go, and then I got so mad at wait a minute, it's over, But there's always that. Again, like you guys have said, it comes back to that faith of going, at least I know I can take this to God. When you think about this structure that we've seen in these Psalms, what does that tell you about addressing God? And that whole idea tell you anything, Dana?
I think one of the signs that we have that you've got faith in God is, somebody might look out, well, you're being pretty rough on God. Well, I think God can take it.
Yeah.
You think about going to your family member or somebody, like we expressed, and, well, I would call them out on this, but they're like a dumpster fire right now. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas God, He's got broad shoulders, He's got all the answers, so that's where your faith is.
Yeah.
Laid out.
Yeah, that's good.
I think Jesus in the garden, could you say kind of lamenting?
Yeah.
He didn't want to go through it, so it was very hard of him.
Yeah, what Linda said, you think about Jesus in the garden, it was kind of a personal lament that, God, here's what I know is expected of me, but if there's any options, it's kind of like of course Jesus can do it, but saying, if there's something else we can do, let's do that. But ultimately it comes down to not my will, but yours be done. Well, Tommy.
Well, you mentioned earlier that these Psalms often make us uncomfortable. And the latter part of verse 7 is a good example. God knocked the teeth out.
Yeah. There's some realness in these.
I like how they bring out just a different depth of relationship between you and God, and one that is completely acceptable to God. As Christians, we're taught a lot about your adopted children, but also servants, and it's really hard to reconcile those two ideas.
Yeah.
As a servant, you don't tell God nothing.
The concept of us being as children of God, being that child of God, but also that we're servants of God, that we put God on a pedestal, that we serve God. So it does get uncomfortable going, here's what I'd like you to do in this situation.
But I think the
Yeah.
So when you look at, and he's, starting off and you point out verse 3, he recognizes God as his shield, as protecting him while he's, lamenting and complaining as well. He's recognizing what God is to him. And I think sometimes we have a big disconnect because we've never had to depend on a piece of metal to make this connection to,
Yeah.
to how much we are protected, even in this, disgruntled place.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it behooves us in anything we're reading in Scripture to do the best we can to find out what's happening to that person, what the context is for them. And like I said, Psalm 3 is a very unique context. And again, the fact that David says, here's what I want you to do to these people. Those people include his son, and that's got to be a strain mentally. Okay, look over to Psalm 44. Because now I want us to switch to the communal laments for just a little bit as we wrap up. What in our history, sort of recent, fairly recent history, what have we lamented as a people? What have been things that we as a nation, as a community, have lamented? What's that? The pandemic. What'd you say? September 11th. The pandemic definitely leveled all of us. It's interesting. I've been reading different books lately, written in like 2020, 2021, and them talking about the pandemic and like as we deal and live through this, here's what you and it's almost like how weird that's going to be in print forever. That really happened. What else? Very recently, think of the shooting at in Kansas City. I mean, I haven't really heard. It sounds like an argument broke out and went wild, but you hear this kind of stuff, and as a community of people, you look at these things and you go, God, what is happening? What's going on in our world? You go back, of course, as far back as September 11th, the events of that whole time. A lot of questioning happening. But then, like I said, you move forward and you think about school shootings. You think of all these tragic, terrible things that happen. And it's easy for us as a people to just go, we've lost our way. I mean, just as whether it's as a nation, as a humanity, whatever it may be, that we really question what's happening. These communal laments in these Psalms, and Adam pointed this out last week, these are writing from the perspective of we're your people, God, that we as a group, this is happening, or this is happening. There are basically 11 of these communal laments throughout the Psalms. But what I think is important, and Lisa, you kind of touched on this already. This is from Walter Brueggemann, the guy that wrote all this material. This whole orientation idea. This is his quote. In these communal laments, in the laments, there is no self-deceiving politeness, no attempt to protect Yahweh from how it really is. I mean, this is a bearing your soul. And in these communal or national laments is what some people call them. It is the psalmist will call out to God, and these are where we really see that reminder to God of, hey, look what you've done for us in the past. Why is this happening to us now? All the things that you've done for us, and now we're in this situation. But this is a picture of God's people lamenting together, of being in sorrow together. Psalm 44. This is from the Message, and I'm not a huge fan of the Message usually, but Psalm 44 from the Christian Standard starts out, God, we have heard with our ears, our ancestors have told us the works you accomplished in their days, in days long ago. This is how the Message puts this. We've been hearing about this, God, all of our lives. And that is so true. for the Jewish people. We've been hearing about what you've done. Our fathers have told us the stories their fathers told them, how you single-handedly weeded out the godless from the fields and planted us, how you sent those people packing but gave us a fresh start. We didn't fight for this land. We didn't work for it. It was a gift. You gave it, smiling as you gave it, delighting as you gave it. What's the point of that? So the next sentence will be what? So God... Yeah, so do something about this. So why are we in this situation? We've known about you. We've heard this about you our entire life. Now, this is what I want to mentioned earlier. Consider the parallels to Moses. I mean, Moses deals with God like this often. Exodus 32:11. Moses tells God, let not your anger, O Lord, blaze forth against your people, whom you delivered from the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand. He's saying, don't wipe these people out. Because remember, you're the one who brought us out. You're the one who took care of us. You can't wipe out these people. Then as you get down through 17 through 23, this is kind of that communal deep breath, sort of. Not at first. But all this has happened to us, but we've not forgotten you or betrayed your covenant. Our hearts have not turned back. Our steps have not strayed from your path. But you have crushed us in a haunt of jackals. Skip down to verse 23. Wake up, O Lord. Why are you sleeping? It's like, wow. But that's the message of this, is that God, you've done so much for us. So get us out of this situation. Again, Moses does the same thing in Numbers 14. We're not going to touch on that really. But this whole idea of reminding God of what he's done for us. Let's parallel that to us today as the church today, as God's, I mean, New Testament says that we're the new Israel, that we're the new kingdom of God. How can we lament the same way? It's hard to think about, isn't it?
What I think what I struggle with is there's part of me that even kind of bucks up against this. I appreciate the raw emotion behind it, but I wonder sometimes, and I see this in the Psalms that, again, like they're knocking up the stuff, like, is that a Christian attitude? I almost feel like I see more in common with the prophets of Baal on the mountain trying to, self-flagellation on all themselves, trying to wake up their God.
Yeah.
And so there are verses like this in Psalms that actually make me really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Whoa, I don't know if I get that bold with God. I appreciate that we see that because we know that we can, but I also struggle to say I should model off a verse like this.
Yeah. Okay, what John's saying is that this statement can make us super uncomfortable as New Testament Christians. But what about Jesus saying, ask, seek, knock? Be bold. Let us come, Hebrews 4. Let's come before the throne of God with boldness. Well, no, we're humble. We don't want, but you're right. It's weird for us to think this way.
It kind of goes back to your mentioning whining.
Yeah.
I think we all got a healthy dose of that growing up from our parents. Finish your carrots, there's shit starting to shine.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So we don't want to complain, but we got to remember everybody's disaster is their own.
Right.
The kid who breaks his toy truck is just as much distress as the girl whose boyfriend breaks up with them in middle school, as the spouse who loses somebody who loses their spouse.
Yeah.
Everybody's grieving just at a different level.
Right. Yeah. And what these psalms, these communal psalms, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is, I think I kind of reflect on what you said earlier about having your own plan. If I have my own plan, I probably don't need to pray this prayer for God's help as much.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I try to lean more towards relying on God, but I still have a lot of my own plans.
Oh, yeah.
That I can work through situations. But I feel like this isn't necessarily saying that God's asleep. I think it's projecting the passion of the writer forward in how much they want something to happen.
Yeah. There's
Rely on God.
there's a definite attitude with these. Eric. Yeah.
maybe don't have that level of comfort doing that to other people or with other people.
Right.
And so this communal lament thing is just odd to us. It is. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because we're opening ourselves up to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So what you had up there to me really reminds me of when in the New Testament in the Gospels when Christ is asleep on a cushion, and they come and they say,
What are you
why
doing?
are you sleeping? And then I think what we don't see is God probably returns this, would return this lament with saying, "Where's your faith?"
Yeah.
Because it's exactly what he asked them then, like, "Where's your faith?"
Yeah. Let me just close with this. The reminder in these communal laments is, God, we're your people. So help us through this situation. Okay, so what's key in that is then be his people. For us today, as the church today, we have our struggles. We have our struggles within and without, just like they did. But our question for God is not, God, why are you letting all this stuff happen to the church today? Our question is, how can we be your people and just trust you? Trust you to get us through, because we are your people. And that's how all of these conclude, is we're your people, we're going to stay your people. So then we have to be his people and trust that he's going to provide, that he's going to help the church flourish, he's going to help the church stay on the right path. We have to do our part, and that's what so many of these end with. I want to encourage you, look at Psalm 137. I wanted to look at that, but you're going to end up hearing a sermon from Psalm 137 someday, because it is so good. It's by the rivers of Babylon. That song? Look that song up too. That's a great song. All right, we're going to stop, or else we're going to just be way over time.